In the dark we are wandering, in the light we are knowing, side by side we are playing, hand in hand we are growing, and sometimes we are waking, and sometimes we are sleeping, but always we are reaping, one day at a time. Yes, always we are reaping, one day at a time.
Bravo, bravo. I was kind of thinking and praying about my lesson for this morning, and I came across something from Rita Rudner, and she said, I gave my father $100 and said, go out and buy yourself something that'll make your life a little easier. So he went and bought a present for my mom. Charles, I'm getting a bit of an echo over here. Can you, thank you, sir. Oh, yeah. So I had a dream this morning, as a matter of fact, and woke up and my father was in the dream. And we just had a really nice connection. He showed up a little late for something we were going to celebrate, which is not like my father, to be honest. He was actually pretty prompt most of the time. But once he got there, we were able to have a real nice connection. And we just spent a real nice time sitting next to each other, just enjoying this celebration. I don't even know what it was, other than perhaps just celebrating that we were connected and together again and really feeling that. My father made his transition. Actually, he made his transition the day after I was ordained as a minister, which is kind of interesting to me in lots of ways. But he was very happy and very proud for me to become a minister. My father was, I think probably, he had a calling to be a minister also, but he also had 5 kids and wasn't sure he could handle being a minister and 5 kids. So he was a really good salesman, and he traveled quite a bit and was a very good salesman, and I really I have to say my father was a good influence on me in a lot of ways. He was a good man. I think that's one of the best. I mean, he just was a very caring and very compassionate and a man of very much of integrity. And he taught me a lot of things, and one of the things that he taught me had to do with words. And my father was a big influence on me as I was growing up, and he gave me, when I was in college, one of the most influential books that I've ever had or read, a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And if you've not read that book, I highly recommend it. There's also a version called As a Woman Thinketh, and there's actually one As a Child Thinketh, which is pretty neat. And so it really is about the power of our thoughts. And we talked about this last week, about how significant and how important it is our thoughts are, and how we are creating our experiences really based upon our quality of thinking. Well, one of the things that we want to be conscious of and aware of is that our thinking is not only reflected by the words that we use in life, but they're also focused by them. One of the examples that are given in our lesson this week on the quest is that words actually are a way of focusing our thoughts. You ever heard that saying, I need to get my thoughts together? Well, we need to get our thoughts together so that we can put them into words. Or we need to get the words so that we're getting our thoughts together. And they give a great example of light. When you look at the room here, light it can be diffused in all directions. It's really goes every way, and it will light up wherever it goes. But one of the things they talk about is this idea that laser light doesn't necessarily do that. You can be in a dark room, and you can shine a laser light, and that laser light doesn't light the room. It lights a point. And there's a real power in that. And the reason why it does that is because all of the energy is congruent and moving in the same direction together. It's not diffused. It's not going out in all directions. And that's kind of the power that words have with our thoughts, is they focus our thoughts in a particular way. And because they focus our thoughts in a particular way, they are actually helping to enhance the power of the creative power of our thoughts. And so when we use words, we're using them in a way that is enhancing the power of whatever creative energy is working through our thoughts and our thinking. And it is also a way of helping to reshape and reform the level and the quality of our thoughts and our thinking. Most of our creative experiences, things that are created in our life, are not necessarily created through our conscious thoughts. They're created through our subconscious thoughts. And our words are ways that we have of retraining our subconscious way of thinking. And that's one of the reasons why in Unity we teach the importance and the power of what we call denials and affirmations. And so when we have a thought that comes up that's not something that we want to necessarily continue to create in our experiences in our lives, then we shift those by using what's called a denial, or what I call a release statement. You may have a thought of fear or lack, and you might say to yourself, no, that's not true. I'm not going to accept that. That's not true at all. Someone recently said something, used a term for me about being, I have to remember what the word was. I think I blocked it out. That's what it was. I think I released it, so it's not coming back to me. It must be working pretty well, obviously. Desperate. There was a word desperate that came up in a conversation, and I'm going, well, no, not in any way. There's no desperation. I don't accept that. That's not an energy that I'm going to hold in my, and so I was able to just kind of block that and just say, no, that's not the truth. I am confident, I am peaceful, I'm clear, And so I thought, well, that's really interesting. It's a way of shifting our focus of the thinking and the thoughts in our lives. So my father gave me some real great awarenesses about that. And my father was a person, like I said, of integrity. And he traveled. He was a salesman, and he traveled around the state of Arkansas mostly and sold emergency power generators to farmers. And whenever there was a power outage somewhere in the state of Arkansas, my father would go there and he would drop off a generator with a farmer, usually dairy farmers or chicken farmers, and if they don't have electricity, they really can't do their work, and they can really lose everything. A chicken farm can lose all their chickens in a matter of an hour on a hot day if the power goes off. And a dairy farmer, if they're not able to milk for a day or more, a couple of days, their cows dry up. So they absolutely have to have this electricity. And my father knew that. So it's one of the things he did is he sold generators, but he would go there and just on the person's word, he would drop it off and let them use it for as long as the power was off. And then when he came back, if they wanted to buy it, he would then sell it to them. But he really trusted that when someone said something, that they were true to their word. Because he was. Because he knew if he said that, it was he was good to his word. And he was what I would call, and what Don Miguel Ruiz would say is, in that sense, he was very impeccable with his word. One of the 4 agreements that Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, and the first one is, be impeccable with your word. Now, I'm going to be real impeccable with my word now and tell you that I have not always been impeccable with my word. I wouldn't be being impeccable with my word if I told you that I'm always impeccable with my word. You follow what I'm saying? But it's important to understand the significance and the power of being impeccable with your word. And what does that mean? I want to read to you actually what Don Miguel Ruiz says about that. He says, now let us see what the word impeccable means. Impeccable means without sin. Impeccable comes from the Latin peccatus, which means sin. The M in impeccable means without. And so impeccable means without sin. Now, a sin is anything that you do which goes against yourself. Let me say that again, because that's a very valuable distinction. A sin is whenever you do something that is against your true being, your true nature, that is not in alignment with who you truly are. That's what sin really means. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you strayed in some way or you wandered in some way out of alignment with your true nature, which is created in the image and after the likeness of the divine. You're created as a divine being. And so when you are doing or saying things that are not in harmony and alignment with that truth of who you are, you have sinned. Now, sin, let's get clear, is not a permanent state. As many people and many teachings will tell you, you're a sinner. There's no such thing as a sinner. It doesn't exist. That's stating that there's something that is the reality of who and what you are. And that's an illusion. There's no such thing in this life and in this world, quote, as a sinner. There are those who have committed sins, which means that they have said or done or acted in some way that is not in alignment and harmony with the love, the light, and the truth of who and what they are. And we've all done that. Anybody here not done that? So, in a real sense, it's just putting a label on it is actually in and of itself a sin. Calling or saying someone that is a sinner is in and of itself a sin because it's not in your nature to judge someone as being something less than their divine nature. And the moment that we do judge someone else being not in as of their divine nature, we are not in our divine nature. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's only that part of ourselves that is out of alignment with our true nature that will make that kind of judgment. Does that make sense? And so it's really significant and important for us to really pay attention to the thoughts and the words that we hold and the words we have. Don Miguel Ruiz goes on to say that everything you feel or believe or say that goes against yourself is a sin. You go against yourself when you judge or blame yourself for anything, and being without sin is exactly the opposite. Being impeccable is not going against yourself. And when you are impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. You do not judge or blame yourself. Anybody ever judged or blame yourself or anything? I'm going to suggest to you that's a sin. And I could say, well, you're going to go to hell for doing it. No, I'm sorry. You're not going to go to hell. You create a painful experience, perhaps, which we call hell in life. You don't have to wait until after you die to experience that. What you do is you create being out of alignment with the kingdom of heaven, which is in you and of you, which is the truth of your nature, which is who and what you truly are. And so we're not here to judge each other or to judge ourselves, for that matter. He goes on to say, being impeccable with your word is the correct use of your energy. It means to use your energy in the direction of truth and love for yourself and for others, because in reality, whatever energy you send out or put out to others, you are actually sending it to yourself, aren't you? Whatever you put out there comes back. Jesus said it in a very farming sort of way. Whatever you sow, you reap. Whatever you send out is what you are going to experience back. And so it's really significant and important to pay attention and notice the words that you use with others. I came across, and there's just a creative power in the words that we use. I came across an article on memory. I forget where, but but I'm up. And in the article on memory, it showed that words like senile and forgetful and words like that actually reduced memory scores on memory tests. And words like wisdom and thoughtful, aware, also they actually increased memory scores. And so the more words that you use like senile, the more senile you become, interestingly enough, or the more you forget. And so there's an absolute correlation between using the power of our words and actual physical results. I would love to have a volunteer to do a little demonstration. Anybody open for doing a little kinesiology this morning? Bless you. Come on up. Come on down, as they say.
You're not contestant.
All right, so many of you familiar with, how many of you are familiar with muscle testing or kinesiology? I think most of us here probably are, maybe those in the viewing audience out there. So I'm going to ask you, if you will, to hold your arm out. Let's use this arm, why don't you? Just kind of hold your arm out and turn and face me, if you would. And then hold your arm out kind of like that. And I'm going to push down here on your hand, and then I want you to resist, okay? All right, now I want you to think of a word. Hold your arm out again, if you will. I want you to think of a word that represents anger in some way. Got one? Okay. And okay. And I want you to think of a word that represents love in some way. Now, you, sir, are energetically reversed. So we're going to do something to shift that. You open for that?
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to have you just tap right here on the side of your hand. All right. And then I want you to tap under your lip, right like that. And then tap on the side of your hand again. And right up in here. There we go. And then under your lip again. I know this seems kind of strange, but there's something to this, actually. So, all right, let's go back, and I want you to think of that. Hold your arm out again, and I want you to think of that same word that kind of represented anger to you in some way. Got it?
Yeah.
And now I want you to think of that word that represented love in some way. All right. So part of what's going on right here, I'm going to suggest to you is that, and I'm going to share this if you're okay with it. You're not feeling real loved right now, are you?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Give him a chance to rest his arm between.
Yeah, well, that sometimes that works. So tell me a little bit about what you're feeling right now. Because I noticed that as I mentioned love to you, there was some tears that came to you. When you think about that.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. And that touches your heart, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. All right. Let's hold your arm out again. Say that again. And I want you to say the word Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Now that's strong. Now, I want you to say the word that you had representing anger in some way.
Frustration.
And that's definitely weaker. Yeah, he's a pretty strong guy, but but you can see that there is a difference in the muscle strength based upon the words that we are holding and thinking. Did you pick that up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a definite physical response to the words that we use in our lives, whether we're using them toward ourselves or against ourselves or toward someone else. There is an energy that is either a anabolic energy, which is life enhancing, or there's a catabolic energy, which is life depleting. And it's a way of kind of checking that out with us. So Dan Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements, is telling us that we need to really be impeccable with our words so that we are in alignment with that energy of truth, of who and what we truly are. When we say something that is not true, there's an automatic loss of power. When we say something that is, when we make an agreement in some way, we are using our words to make a decision and a commitment about something. And if we make an agreement about something and then we don't follow through on that agreement, it doesn't necessarily make us a bad person, but it automatically means that our word is disempowered. We don't have we're diminishing the power that we have and the power that our words have. And so when you make an agreement in some way, when you make a commitment, I strongly encourage you to follow through on the commitment, because you're not hurting anyone else. Maybe you are hurting someone else if you're disappointing them, or there are ways that you can certainly do that. But I'm going to suggest even more than that, you are diminishing your own energy and power. And you're realigning yourself with something that's not the truth of who and what you are. You're aligning yourself with something that is not the reality of your nature. Now, if you make an agreement and you make a commitment to do something and you don't do it, you're going to immediately experience a loss of worth. It just isn't automatic. People when we say something and we don't do that, it doesn't make us bad, but it does make us diminished in some way. Does that make sense? And so there is an energy that really is drained from us in our life. And so what I encourage you to do is one or two things. Learn how to say no more. Make fewer agreements. But when you do make an agreement, follow through on it, because it empowers you. Because every time you say you're going to do something and then you do it, you are actually strengthening yourself and your word and your power. And it is absolutely a way of enhancing your being and your expression of your being in life. Does that make sense? That's being impeccable. You know, when you say, I'm this, and you follow through, that's being impeccable. That's being in alignment. Jesus said, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And there's a great power in understanding that whatever words we use, the word justified actually is more of a building and architectural term. Jim, you would appreciate that. When something is justified, it's in alignment. And so when you say something, when you use your words, you are aligning with the words that you are using, or when you use your words in a way that is depleting in some way, or catabolic, as we talk about, you're actually also condemning yourself to whatever you're putting out there. So when you say something negative towards someone else or about someone else, guess what? You get to wear it. It's coming back, and it's going to show up on you. And the reality is, I came across this quote some time ago, and I was trying to remember it, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but it's basically, let me see if I can draw it back here. Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. In other words, if your words are not in alignment with who you are, people are not going to hear clearly. They're not going to hear who you are clearly, and they're not going to hear what you're saying clearly. Does that make sense? And so if you really want to make a difference and make an impact and have a clear communication, speak your truth, speak who you are, and speak it from that place of knowing that you're in alignment with what you're saying. Jesus also said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. We wouldn't be here today if that weren't true. Isn't that right? This group wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing here today if that wasn't true. So we use words to create. We use words to create either the blessings that we want to see and experience in our life, or we use words to take away, to detract. And I'm going to suggest to you, I'm going to share with you a story about my father. And it's really not more of a story about me, of course. But some of you may not realize this, but I had a pretty bad temper growing up. Yeah, I did. I had a short fuse, as they say, and I lost my temper pretty quickly and pretty easily. And I I learned ways of working with that so that I don't really do that anymore, and I'm grateful, and I really am not that kind of, I don't have that kind of fuse anymore. It's like, oh, well, thank you, God. It took many years for me to get to that place, I'll be honest with you. A lot of prayer, a lot of study, a lot of understanding, a lot of practice in, experiencing life differently and seeing life differently. But early on in my 20s, I had a bit of a challenge and a meltdown, you might say, and was having a really difficult time. And I remember having a conversation, polite way of putting it, conversation with my parents, and I was really angry with them. I was angry with them because I was angry. And in my household, maybe it wasn't in yours, but in my household, I grew up, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I kind of tried to follow that for a long time. But I found that that wasn't a really healthy way of being either. And so one of the things I found out, it was important to be able to express your anger. You ever heard that? You got to express your anger, you got to let it out. Well, I think there's some truth in that, but you need to learn how to let it out in a way that's anabolic, that's creative. And I hadn't quite learned that at that point. And so I was making sure that my parents knew how angry I was and how angry I was with them. And I remember saying something to my father that haunts me even sometimes today. I've done a lot of work to heal it, but I yelled at my father, and I said, "You blank, blank hypocrite." You can feel the negative energy in that, can't you? And I still feel that in my heart. But my dad was hurt by that. It was very hurtful for me to say a thing like that, because he was anything but that. He did everything he knew how to live in alignment with what he understood in his truth. And so what I realized some years later, after getting over some of the hurt, and my dad got over hurt fairly easily, actually. He was a very forgiving person. So he was clear of it probably within a week. But as you can see, I'm still experiencing some sadness from that. That's the power of words, folks. And so if you say things in anger, believe me, it may or may not affect or hurt someone else, but it's going to hurt you. Because you're going to feel that and you're going to carry that. And I know there are people in this room that know what I'm talking about. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about something else that we have a tendency to do with our words. Anytime that we are being judgmental or critical of someone or ourselves, we are practicing black magic. This is what Don Miguel Ruiz teaches us in the Four Agreements. You're practicing black magic. You're using your words to state something that is not in alignment with the truth. When you are judgmental and critical of yourself, you're not saying things that are in alignment with who you are, but it will have an effect and will actually help to create more of whatever you're judging and criticizing. It is. That's what he calls black magic. Because there's a power, there is a magic in your words. Now, you can practice black magic, and you can also practice, if you want to call it this, white magic, which is healing, which is transformative, which is uplifting. You can encourage those around you. You can look for the good. You can look for the possible blessings. There's a story in our lesson in the quest about a monk that was going along, and as they were going along, some of his disciples found that there was a dead deer on the side of the road, and they were trying to divert the monk so that he wouldn't have to see the rotting decay of this dead deer, and didn't want him to have that unpleasantness, but he was not going to be shifted from his course. He just kept going. And as he went along, he looked and he said, "Oh, what beautiful antlers." We can look for the negative. We can look for the rot and the decay in life. Or we can look for the beauty that's present in whatever circumstance or situation. and put our energy on that. Because when we do that, we are actually participating in creating something beautiful. Or we're putting our energy into rotten decay. And we're helping to focus more on rotten decay. And we're using our words like lasers to help manifest even more rotten decay. So, you got a choice, right? Just like with our thoughts, our words are creating our life and our experiences. Another way that we misuse words, which is also, in my opinion, black magic, is complaining. Anybody ever complained about anything? Well, I hate those complainers. They're just always... I hate those judgmental people. Oh, I know. Complaining is, there's a fantastic work out there. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's called A Complaint-Free World. I did a series on it when I first came here, and we probably maybe about time to do another one. But A Complaint-Free World is an amazing practice of 21 days going without complaining on anything. I've made it to about 14. I feel pretty good. I'm proud of myself. I never made it to the full 21 days. And the part of the practice is they give you a band, and every time that you catch yourself complaining, then no, you don't pop yourself, because that just, you switch the band to the other arm. And you do it for 21 days, and the secret here is that if you do complain, you start the 21 days over again. Yeah. So the idea is to go 21 days without ever complaining. Now, don't get me wrong, a complaint is when you are saying something about something or someone that doesn't have the power to make a change in that situation. So if I complain to someone, so if I go and complain to Lissy about Teresa, or if I go and complain to Teresa about Lissy, that's a complaint. But if I go to Teresa and say, there's something I think that you could do to really experience more, or if I go to Lissy or say, I'd like to see, this is what I'd really like to see. That's a request. And there's a big difference between a complaint and a request. You know how to tell the difference? If you go and if you say something to someone and you find that there's a resistance, and you find that, and I'm talking about resistance in you, if they were to say no to your complaint, you can bet it's you can bet it's a complaint. Yeah. If they were to say no to your request, it's a request. In other words, if you get upset or bothered or resistant because you've made a request and they say no, it's not a request. It's a complaint. You see the difference? And it has to do with what happens inside of you. That's how you can tell the difference. So that's one of the ways that we misuse our words. We practice black magic. Another one is gossip. As I was saying, talking and complaining about somebody to somebody else, that's not helpful. That's called gossip, and that's a sin. It's a sin. You are using your words to talk negatively about someone. And, it's practicing black magic also. When you two agree on that with the other person, you're basically using your creative energy to hold an energy for someone that you are going to reap back at some point in some way. What goes around comes around. What you sow, you reap. Now, these are maybe challenging, but they're powerful awarenesses. And so what I encourage you to do is, there's a wonderful scripture that says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." Boy, if you just are wanting to really get clear with who and what you are and live in life to your fullest, listen to that prayer. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. In other words, let my words and my thoughts be in alignment with something more, with something higher, with the Spirit of the divine within me, with that creative, loving power that is our source and our supply, which is our grace and our compassion. And that, my friends, is using the power of the spoken word in a way that will transform not only your life, but the lives of those around you. You are magnificent beings. You are beings of spirit. Stop saying anything other than that. To yourself, about each other. And when you do, you'll be the change, as Gandhi says. You'll be the change that you want to see in the world. And that's my lesson for this week. And it's my lesson. I get to share it. Have a great week. Let's move into our meditation time. Thank you.
That prayer that you just mentioned is a song, too. Beautiful song, yeah. I'll work it up. But today, we've got Surely the Presence. And if you'd like to sing along with this, you can, or if you just want to listen. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power and his grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. In the midst of his children, the Lord said he would be. It doesn't take very many. It can be just 2 or 3. And I feel that same sweet spirit that I felt oft times before. Surely I can say that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power and his grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. There's a holy hush around us as God's glory fills this place. I've touched the hem of his garment. I can almost see his face, and my heart is overflowing with the fullness of his joy. I know without a doubt that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power and his grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
All right, let's move into our meditation time. Let's take a nice deep breath. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be in alignment with my true nature. be in alignment with my wholeness and speak words to the cells of my body of health and life. Be in alignment with words of love and care and compassion and forgiveness for myself for those times when I have been out of alignment with the Lord of my being, my true nature, the Spirit of God within. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be filled with an awareness of absolute abundance and unlimited supply that Spirit is and has with and through and for me. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be filled with words of understanding, of peace, of caring and compassion. I let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart fill me with the fullness of life. And I align myself with that which is greater, that which is precious, that which is wonderful. Feel that in your heart space and just be open to those words of love, of caring, of compassion, of abundance, of peace, and know that you are affecting even the cells of your body, all the way down to the DNA. And give thanks. Take a nice deep breath now. Let your awareness be here in this room, this time and place. Let a word of praise come into your heart. Let a word of hallelujah come into your heart. Great word. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. And so it is. Thank you, God.
We at Unity in the Heart of Austin are committed to inspiring people to awaken to their unique divine nature through spiritual teachings, through heart-to-heart connections, through prayer, and through sacred service. And we provide tools, spiritual tools, that allow you to live your best possible life. I'm Reverend Tony Roebuck, minister at Unity in the Heart of Austin, and I truly hope that you are inspired by and that you are transformed by, you enjoy this week's spiritual message. And if you would like to leave a donation, a tithe, to help the work of this ministry in supporting you and others like you, then we are truly grateful for your generosity and for helping to make the world a better place. Because we know that life is meant to be good.